Yo, what's up, everybody? Jumpin' yeah, and today I'm back on some Outriders, and I'm gonna be showing off my extremely unique and awesome Pyromancer build. This is actually a hybrid build. It's half anomaly and half of the gun build. But in reality, what it's really all about is debuffing. This is a debuff build. It's going to make the enemies take a ridiculous amount of extra damage, and it is just insane, especially in co-op. So this is solo gameplay, but just remember, this is really meant for like when you're playing in co-op. If you're playing with like a Techromancer gun build, or if you are playing with, let's say, a pure anomaly Pyromancer build, you will absolutely just destroy everything. And your teammates will really appreciate you a lot because it is insane. Like if you watch like a really good Techromancer gun build, after you've done your debuffs, the Techromancer can just pretty much just one burst with the AR extremely huge enemies. So it is just ridiculous. Now, the big downside to this build is I am using Akari armor, and I know people have trouble getting that. So I have to point that out. And also, it's a little bit worse than even that, which I'm going to break down when I talk about the gear. But because of that, I'm also going to show my pure gun build that I like to use. It's not totally pure, though. I do use Thermal Bomb on my gun build, and that's, like, I think really good. I think Thermal Bomb is extremely underrated, and it's, like, not used as much as it should be because it is just an amazing debuff ability. It is insane. So I'm going to talk about that, of course. But I'll show that other build because that build is much easier to do. You only need like epics, and there are, of course, some tier 3 mods you're going to need for a build like that. But it's a lot easier to put together than something like this. This is when you definitely want to have like some really top-notch gear for your Pyromancer. But like I said, the point of it is really just something different if you want to try this out, and especially if you're going to play co-op. It is a lot of fun, and it is just awesome watching giant enemies just die instantly. I mean, that is really where you get your fun with this build. Now, this was inspired by my friend Corky. You've probably seen him in like my other gameplays where I've like showed co-op partners, but he like exclusively plays the Pyromancer. And the thing is that he had this debuff build where he was using Thermal Bomb and Heat Wave, and he was using Eruption. He had like Shadow Comet. It was more of an anomaly build. And then I had the idea like, well, you know what? Why not try to make a hybrid build where you can use a gun and you can use volcanic rounds still, but you are going to be an anomaly build. And believe it or not, it actually worked out pretty good. Now, there is a big downside to this, which I'm talking about right now, and that is how do you get your ammo back? Whenever you're using a gun build, you want a way of getting your ammo back. Now, I actually do get a lot of crap for this, but I am using the perpetual mobile glitch right now, and of course that will eventually be fixed. But the idea of this build, you are not meant to be the top damage dealer. This is not a build where you're going in trying to get 300 million damage a run. This is a build where you can easily get 200 million, no problem. I do it all the time with this build, in co-op or not. But the thing is that really what this build is about is just being able to do some good damage while being able to debuff. So I'm using an LMG, so I have a 150 magazine. So even if the glitch didn't exist and you couldn't do it, honestly, like the cooldowns are pretty decent. I think it's like 15 seconds for volcanic rounds. I would say you could probably just get away with using 2 magazines of the volcanic rounds. That's 300 rounds, and just wait for the cooldown. And while you're at it, you're still doing decent damage with your powers as well, because the powers actually do some nice damage. Now, Thermal Bomb's not the best damage skill in the world, but it can do some nice crowd control at times. If the enemies are all bunched up and you have the Thermal Bomb going, they will take some crazy nice damage and they will die from it. And Heat Wave can actually do some nice damage too. So overall, you have other damage options, but like I said, the real idea here is that we're debuffing to help ourselves and the team, and on top of it, we are also able to do some good damage with our gun. So we're able to just take out the enemies like that as well. Now I'm just going to go ahead and show you the damage breakdown from that run. Essentially, I get a lot of damage from volcanic rounds, obviously, but I also get some nice damage from Burm and Thermal Bomb, and I actually got some damage there from Heat Wave. So right here, this is just an example of my firepower, what I can get out of this. 671,000 firepower with 504,000 anomaly power. That is crazy. Alrighty guys, so now I'm going to go ahead and break down this build for you, and I'll tell you everything that you're going to want to know about it, and I'll show my other gun build, which is a lot easier to actually make. Alrighty, well the first I'm going to start with is actually the class nodes. Basically, believe it or not, I do not go for the top tree. That's where a lot of weapon damage is, but we're not doing that because remember this is a hybrid build. So we're going down the bottom tree, and we're mainly going down here to get some anomaly and cooldown. But then we do get some weapon damage with fire and rifle. This will give us 35% weapon damage whenever we do an exploding skill, which is of course thermal bomb. Then I go ahead and reduce some damage I take from the elites. I don't really care about actually doing extra skill damage. I mean, it's nice, but I don't really need it in my opinion. And then I get more anomaly damage. And this is an important one, which is Inferno Bullets. You want to get that firepower based on your anomaly. That's one of the most important things about this build. Now, I go ahead and I do grab this other anomaly power, but you could technically, if you wanted to, actually grab this, which is Trial by Fire. It's only 5% extra damage that you do to enemies that are burning, but it could be pretty decent. Now, one thing that's nice is that you can get several nodes, which are going to give you weapon damage and anomaly power. So that's kind of perfect for this build. I went ahead and grabbed Wildfire for the cooldown. That definitely does help a lot. And then we do go up here. Now, this isn't really good or necessary, but we do need to grab it to actually go up. Again, we want to go ahead and get the weapon damage and anomaly power. We do get some nice health from all this, too, from this middle tree. But I'm trying to get to all guns blazing. Whenever we do a skill, we get 20% weapon damage for 7 seconds. So that's really nice. I go ahead and get Let Them Burn. It's not really necessary, but I have to get something. And then basically, we want to finally get to this. That way, when we do Heat Wave and when we actually activate our volcanic rounds as well. But really, it's just Heat Wave. We get 45% more armor. This helps a lot. It definitely will increase your survivability. So that is super, super important. Now the skills you already know, we're doing Thermal Bomb, we're doing Heat Wave. These are our debuffing skills. And then of course we have our volcanic rounds. Now I did say that it was like 15-second cooldown, but it's actually 16.5-second cooldown for volcanic rounds. So if they ever do fix the glitch, and you do need to basically like wait for the cooldown, it's not as bad as things like, of course, the toxic bullets from the Techromancer. That's ridiculous. It's like a whole minute. So waiting like 16 seconds and a half isn't nearly as bad. And the rest of our cooldowns are basically fine. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the gun real quick. Like I said, I'm using an LMG, but one thing to point out right away, just standing here doing no buffs, no nothing, I have 169,000 firepower with 164,000 anomaly power. So that is actually quite nice. Now the gun that we want to go for, and you can find this just randomly, or you can get a blue and basically turn it into like a god roll for you. I could get a better one because the firepower here is only 86.4 and it could be a lot higher, but honestly I just don't care. But I went ahead and grabbed a light machine gun and I turned it into the suppressing variant. That way it has the big magazine of 150. That's, in my opinion, very important, especially if they do patch the glitch with Perpetual Mobile. But I do recommend putting Dark Sacrifice on. I mean, technically, you could, if they do patch that, you could just throw on Perpetual Mobile as well. That is an option. But Dark Sacrifice definitely increases your weapon damage by a lot. It says it's only 75%, but it definitely feels like it's a lot better than that. But the important one that you gotta get is Anomaly Enhancement. Basically, you're gonna get 30% firepower based on your anomaly. So overall, with the skill node, we actually will get 45% firepower based on our anomaly. So that's why our firepower actually goes up by a lot. Plus, we are buffing it by other means. So basically, that's what you want. You just want any LMG. It doesn't really matter. I will also say I do like the weapon life leech on this. Crit damage would be fine as well. I would probably try to avoid armor pierce maybe. But the weapon life leech is an extra way of getting our health back. We get a lot of health back whenever we do any of our skills like Heat Wave or Thermal Bomb. Because when the enemies are on fire, we're just constantly regenerating our health. But the weapon life leech is also nice because we are getting health back for shooting the enemies. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the armor, and I got some good news and I got some bad news. The bad news is I am using the armor of the Akari, and I know just getting Akari armor in general can be annoying for people, but getting the chest piece is extremely annoying. So that is definitely a problem. The good news, though, is that you could actually use the gloves if you wanted to. Now, the thing about the gloves, though, is that they come with max health, so that doesn't really help us much. But if you don't have the chest piece of the Akari, you could use the gloves, so that is actually kind of nice. But also, if you do decide to use these gloves, you will miss out on an opportunity to have an extra mod slot to play around with, because we do actually have an extra mod slot that we can play around with. But it's really up to you on what you think is best for your build. So basically what you want on every piece, if you can get it, that's why I'm using like the chest piece of the Akari, is anomaly power. We just want full anomaly power. Cooldown reduction is also super, super good. We want as much of that as possible. I have status power on my epics. It's not really necessary, but it does actually kind of help, I guess. So that's something. But that's what you want in terms of attributes. We are using the helmet of the Akari, very easy to get, you can just buy it, so that's not a problem. It comes with Fire Tsunami, so we get the increased like width of the firewall, which is nice. And you will have to also get some of the armor of the Reforged so that you can get some of the thermal bomb mods. So an example is Branded, that comes from the chest piece, but this allows it to actually do its debuff. And also, we will have to get, let me find it real quick, it's Double the Fun. But basically I have it on my boots here. Double Fun will allow the skill to affect 2 targets. Now what's really interesting about this, and I have some theories on why Thermal Bomb is so powerful, because me and my friends, we've played a lot with like different debuffs, and we all agree that we think Thermal Bomb is the best debuff in the whole game, especially for a single target. Obviously if you're talking about hitting multiple enemies, Heat Wave is really good for that. And there's other debuffs like you can get Death Sentence from the Ash Blast, which is the tier 3 mod, and that comes on the helmet, and that is the Torturer's helmet, I believe. But basically, the thing about Double Fun is that from my own testing, I have a theory that the reason why Thermal Bomb is so powerful as a debuff is that if there's only one target, because a lot of times when you do Thermal Bomb, it will seek out 2 targets. But let's say there's just the one target, then I do believe that it will hit that enemy twice. So it's not really a 40% debuff, it's really an 80% debuff at that point, which is crazy, especially if you have Fire Frenzy, which is a tier 1 mod, which allows you to do it twice. So you're talking potential up to 160% debuff on a giant enemy, plus you do have your Heat Wave, which you can basically make it so that your Heat Wave will debuff the enemy by 25%, and if you have 2 Heat Waves, that's 50%. So overall, this build can offer potentially 210% debuff. Now, if I'm wrong about Double Fun, then it's not that high. It's actually 130%, but still, that's a lot. It does help a ton. Now, the only other explanation that me and my friends can kind of come up with when it comes to Thermal Bomb and the way that it works is that maybe it just kind of like plays with the other debuffs and it makes it like really multiplicative. I'm not exactly sure. But the difference is there. I mean, if you just go and watch like my Trickster video I made, and I had a friend using Thermal Bomb there, and I had another friend using the Anomaly Pyromancer build. So basically, their debuffs were insane. And the amount of damage that I could do with the Death Shield was crazy. We're talking 20 million, 37 million. You can hit some insane numbers. And I think a lot of that is actually Thermal Bomb. Either, like I said, it's some type of crazy multiplicative math, or I think Double Fun is actually hitting the enemy twice if it's a single target. So that is crazy. Now, let me actually go ahead and just break this all down so you know all the mods. I did go for Sharp Eye, so we have 2 firepower mods in here. We have Sharp Eye, which is tier 3, and we also have Bloodlust in this as well. That way, when we're killing enemies, we're getting firepower. That's really nice. And another thing that we have is Anomaly Echo. You basically have to go for that when it comes to the legs. And it's actually fine because we get firepower and we get anomaly power. So that actually benefits us both ways. That's totally alright. And like I said, I have Fire Frenzy on that as well. Now, talking about the armor of the Akari, right? The chest piece. Now, the reason why I knew that this was going to be a big deal is because it is a big deal. You kind of need to get 2 of these because I'm sure most people are probably trying to go for the overheat build. And the chest piece is super important for the overheat build. And that is because of detonator. So if you only have 1 chest piece of the Akari, obviously you don't want to get rid of detonator. If you have 2 chest pieces, you can go ahead and get rid of 1, and then you can take advantage of Tidal Wave. But like I said, if you don't have the chest piece at all, you could use the gloves, because the gloves come with Strength from Fire. Now, that's actually a pretty awesome mod for this build if you think about it. Every enemy we hit, and if you look, I actually have that on my gloves right now. Every enemy we hit, we get 10% weapon damage per affected enemy for 8 seconds. The 8 seconds, I'm not a big fan of. I wish it was 10 seconds, but it's fine. But this is a really good mod, so if you don't have the chest piece, you can go ahead and use the gloves, and I would recommend at that point using the helmet, the pants, and then the gloves. That would be fine, basically. But we do have a mod slot here that we can play around with, because Strength from Fire is good, but there are other options that you can do. So let me go ahead and now show you that and what I would potentially recommend trying out, because there's several things that are actually fairly decent for this. And one, of course, would be more defense. In the gameplay you were watching, I was using a defensive mob. I was not using Strength from Fire. I was using Protection of the Flame. This gives us armor, it gives us resistance, it's for 15 seconds. You have to kill the enemy with your weapon, which is fine for this build. But one thing about this is that if you remember from the class notes, I do get 45% more armor. And of course, if I can increase my armor even further, which overall we get basically 66,000 armor from this, then I actually can easily be sitting at like 200 something thousand armor. So that's really, really nice. Defensively, this is extremely good. So this is a good option. Another good one, believe it or not, is actually a tier 1 mod, which is Lava Shots. Basically, while our volcanic rounds are active, we get 25% more anomaly power. Now that might not seem like a lot, but I'm going to give you an example here. So this is Lava Shots, and essentially what's going to happen is I'm going to end up having 620,000 firepower, which is less than the other mod, but I do get 590,000 anomaly power. So that's a big difference. That's a 90,000 anomaly power difference. So I would say that if you want to do more damage with your abilities, then Lava Shots can also be very good. But if you don't have the second Akari chest piece, because that's the realistic part of this, you would need 2 because you don't want to replace the actual good mod that everybody wants. If you don't have that second chest piece, then in theory, you're kind of stuck using these gloves, and then you would be stuck with Strength from Fire. So you lose that extra mod slot to play around with. But that's basically it when it comes to the armor and pretty much this version of the build. Now I'm going to switch over to my other build, which is a more dedicated gun build. But I am using Thermal Bomb on that build, and if you are missing like the Akari armor in general and you're just trying to farm, that is a very, very good build. It actually does have some good debuffs as well, so that's something else. But now, just give me a moment, I'm going to switch and I'll show you that build. Alrighty, now this is my other build, and it's basically more about just doing a lot of gun damage. It's not all about the whole debuff for the whole team deal, or doing any anomaly damage. But basically, I am using Thermal Bomb still, so I do some debuffs with this. And that means that there's no reason not to go ahead and go down on the bottom to get with Fire and Rifle. We want that weapon damage, 35%. We're using Thermal Bomb. It's great. Now, of course, we go up here and we want Assault Master. We get all the extra weapon damage for marking the target as well. And we do get some extra damage versus ashed enemies. It's not like super important with this, but we do go ahead and grab it. Now, you do have an option here. I do get the Weapon Life Leech. I think it's nice. And I also go ahead and I grab the Trial by Ashes to get the extra damage versus ashed enemies. But you could technically go up this way and get Wildfire if you wanted to. If you wanted to avoid those 2 points, you could actually go ahead and do that. And basically, yeah, we get to the end. And at the end, we get 45% weapon damage for doing an immobilizing skill. Now, when it comes to the skill, we're using volcanic rounds, obviously. We're using Thermal Bomb. and we have Feed the Flame. This is important, and I think the cooldown is messed up because I just reset it. But this is important because this is going to allow us to get our health back, but we're going to be able to get our ammo back. What's really nice about the Pyromancer, at least the gun build, is that basically the gun build allows you to just always have your ammo up. You don't really have to rely on like the perpetual mobile glitch or anything like that. You can almost always have your ammo up. It's kind of like the teleport with the Trickster. You teleport, you get your ammo back. Well, Feed the Flames can basically do the same thing for you. So that's actually really, really nice. Now, let me go ahead and talk about the weapons. I do really like the Ambervolt on this build. And I, of course, like the Fatal Symbiote. I like these because, essentially, I like to combine Killing Spree with Dark Sacrifice. And you can do both here. Now, if you wanted to do, like, a Burst AR, you could. That actually works out to be pretty good. Or you could actually use some type of LMG. LMGs can also be pretty good. So, it's really up to you on what gun you want to use. Now, this isn't like the most insane gun build, like the Trickster and the Techromancer. They're just so much better, honestly. They really are in terms of just doing damage. But with the debuff, you are able to actually kind of compete with them. For a moment, you can turn yourself into a Techromancer. At least you feel like that once you've done your Thermal Bomb debuff. So that is something. Now, let me go ahead and talk about the armor. Basically, it's all epic, so that's really nice. When it comes to the attributes, you want firepower, you want cooldown. That's what matters. The big downside, and the reason why, in my opinion, the Pyromancer gun build isn't as good as the Trickster or the Techromancer is that you really have a hard time taking advantage of either long range or close range. I do like to go for like some status power, but honestly, I kind of went for close range more, and the reason why is because I feel like it's easier to be like close to the enemies than it is to be like at 18 meters, which is long range. The only reason why long range works so good on the Techromancer is because you can turn it down to 12 meters. That's way more reasonable. But with this, if you want to take advantage of your close range damage, you have to be in that 10 meter range. But I do, like I said, I do like this SMG. This SMG is super good. The DPS from this, especially when you have Killing Spree on it, which I don't right now. But if you have Killing Spree combined with Dark Sacrifice, you really do melt. So that is something. But basically, because I'm using Thermal Bomb, I have Branded on, and I went ahead on my boots, I have Double Fun and Fire Frenzy. So that's basically what you need. You just basically want the ability to hit 2 targets, or potentially hit 1 target twice if my theory is right. You want to be able to do it twice, so have 2 cooldowns for it or whatever. And you want to be able to debuff. Now, defensively, Mitigation from Death, I use that. Protection of the Flame would be okay too. And I do believe with this build, you can double up if you like. But one of the most important things is Fire Grasper. Now, there's another one which allows you, it's a tier 1, so everybody has it. But it allows you to just get an additional, Feed the Flame target. But basically, the reason why that's important is because of bullet absorption. Basically, you replenish 33% of your ammo when you do Feed the Flame for, the enemies that you hit. So, that's really nice, because with Fire Grasper, you get 99% of your ammo back. So, it makes it, super easy to, manage and actually keep your ammo up. And now that I fixed the Feed the Flame cooldown, as you can see, it's 7.2 seconds. That's not bad at all. So, you can easily keep your ammo up. I have Bloodlust on this, and I have Captain Hunter on this one. And I have Bullet Kindling. I mean, you have some other options there, maybe. If you really felt like you really needed a second defensive mod, then I would say Protection of the Flame would be good. If you combine Mitigation from Death and Protection of the Flame, I mean, it is pretty crazy. I also have Sharp Eye on this. That's just such a good, mod, basically, for getting firepower. And then I already talked about this, but this is, basically Thermal Bomb Central here. But yeah, this build works really good. I really like this build as well. I was rocking this for the longest time because I was trying to get, the Akari armor and stuff. But then I got lucky, and I finally got the chest piece. But then immediately after that, I got a second chest piece. So I got really lucky, I guess. That's kind of how it goes with RNG in this game. You're missing something, you can't get it, then all of a sudden you get it, and then before you know it, you get a second one. And believe it or not, I actually did get a third one. So I actually broke it down for the mod. But yeah, I mean, that's just kind of how it goes. I don't understand it. It really sucks. but I definitely feel like they need to improve the drop rate. I feel like they should make it so that you get a guaranteed legendary, like at least on CT15. And I would say make it guaranteed even with a silver. That way, if you have to play with like random people and then you get a silver with them, everybody is guaranteed to get at least one legendary a run. So I just feel like that would be best. Alrighty guys, so basically those are my like 2 different Pyromancer build. Like I said, this one is great for just being a gun build and doing some good damage, and it can carry you through CT15 no problem if you want to farm. This is a lot easier to make because you don't really have to like, have the Akari armor, which is what everybody complains about. But the other build is just awesome. It is a lot of fun, trust me, because being able to debuff the enemies and make them die, especially the super large enemies, after you do your debuff, if you're playing with like any decent gun build, that other like Trickster build or that Techromancer build will just literally just take out the giant enemy in like one burst from the Techromancer or like just one shot. Like I said, you could go and watch my Trickster video and you'll see like I can one-shot giant enemies because of the debuffs from my allies, especially Thermal Bomb though. That's the one that me and my friends, we really feel like it's underrated, it's underused, and it doesn't make sense because that debuff is just so powerful. Alrighty guys, well I really do hope that you have enjoyed this video and that it has helped. If it has, will you please like the video for me? Be sure to subscribe for future videos, and if you subscribe, make sure to click the bell. That way you can stay notified. Thank you so much for watching, and I really do hope that everyone has a very nice day, and peace out.